Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight from the Great Midwest, I have RDV. And tonight we're going to be talking about Guy Ritchie's recent release of Operation Fortune, Rose de Guerre, or whatever the hell it's called, starring Jason Statham and about 20 other people. And that's key for what we're going to be talking about. And of course, broadcast to you live from the Extreme Studios here, just west of Orlando, Florida. And I got to sit there and tell you, RDV, we've covered Wrath of Man here on this channel and other Statham, however you want to pronounce it. He's done some remakes of like Death Race and Bronson things, The Mechanic, of course, which the original, I think is tremendous. There's a lot of things I like about this movie, and I enjoyed watching it. Visually, it's very striking. But I feel like something's missing. Like I've got a lot of really great appetizers, but I don't have a main course, and I don't know what that is because I enjoyed this film, but I didn't love it. I just thought it was okay. And I mean, I could argue on the opposite and say it's a bit of a mess, and here's why. But it does have something to it, and probably thanks to Guy Ritchie and the incredible cast we have. Um, but overall, considering the types of movies that come out these days, it's probably one of the better ones to see, especially if you like the people in here: Aubrey Plaza, Hugh Grant, among others. Josh Hartnett, let's not forget that. Not Hartnett. We all know it's Hartnett, right? Um, but overall, I gotta sit there and say Jason Statham is a supporting role or lead guy. I don't know how to take him. We want to see him kick ass, and I don't know. I felt like this movie had too many different tones going for it, rather than trying to stick with one. And
Yeah,
it's watchable. So, I
yeah.
mean, what do you think about this on your initial take here?
I understand what you're saying. What you're saying about this movie, how they have different tones on this. I did like it. Um, it kind of reminded me of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Guy Ritchie's movie from 1998.
Right? How
We had
so?
also you had multiple casts in here. It was kind of a dark comedy in this.
Right?
Uh, the only thing I could say, I probably would, most people might say, is Aubrey Plaza played Aubrey Plaza. Okay, what
Yes.
do you do? Other than that, it doesn't bother me. She was signed on for a role. It's like it didn't really derail the movie for me. Um, Now these kind of movies I really kind of don't like because I prefer like movies like The Transporter or The Mechanic. The remake he did.
Yeah,
Like,
you want a one-note thing with a
yeah,
Jason
yeah,
Statham starring vehicle, which
yeah.
he's not really in here, which is what I kind of thought he would be, but I don't feel like he was.
Especially coming off of watching Wrath of Man,
Right?
which I would say is, and you would probably agree is that better than this. This wasn't, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
probably. I think it's a better film. This one might be
yeah,
more digestible, I guess, just
yeah.
because it's
And
easy on the
I
eyes.
want to agree with LK. What's going on, LK? Um,
You?
he said he got Man from Uncle vibes, kinda. In a sense, yeah. You had the two guys working with the girl, you know, and just basically just trying to get an objective or pull a con or whatever, a fast one. Um, I gotta say, did like Hugh Grant in this.
Oh,
You
he was
know,
tremendous. Absolutely.
yes, uh, yes, and Josh Hartnett playing Danny and Francesco or whatever it is, and this the obnoxious actor who basically we need an actor to play an actor to con this guy in order to get this stuff, which is a cliche thing. I think it's done. I can't remember what movie it's been done before, but the recent movie I can think of anything was the Nick Cage movie where they got with the mob boss. One it was a big fan of Nick Cage, Pedro Pascal. But
Oh,
yeah, I didn't watch it, but I'm just saying that's the most recent thing I can think of anything where they. But for a Guy Ritchie movie, though, I said it's like I said, it just reminds me of his earlier movies, his Lock, Stocks, and Two Smoking Barrels, or and then was the other one, Snatch.
Snatch,
So
right?
yes, but dare I say, I gotta say, I still like Layer Cake more than this.
You know,
uh,
there's something to be, having a certain like tone to it or hitness,
yeah,
which I get with Guy Ritchie films. You know what you're going to get, and so by now, those that do know what to expect with, especially a little bit of British humor and all that. Some of it clicks and some of it doesn't. I think with the
yeah,
American audience, unless you're privy to that or you're just tickles your fancy, so to speak. But I think the thing is we grew up, and I think stay them. I immediately go to Transporter, and while he's done other stuff too, I thought some of the stuff that he's done, like we mentioned before, The Mechanic, was a nice sort of modern reinterpretation. And I still think the original Bronson Mechanic is 10 times better than the remake, but still watchable. Like if you didn't know about the old movie, if I watched Statham and Mechanic, I'd be like, oh, this is based on an old
we'll
movie by some
disagree
guy
on
named
that.
Charles Bronson. Yeah, I know. It's like, but I mean, it's some are just forgettable,
So
but some are like okay. And a movie like this, it reminds you of almost like a heist film, kind of sorta. And there's some action in it, but it's like I feel like it's trying to bounce around
it's trying to
being
be
cute.
comedy
It's not, and it's
and
that
action.
doesn't work for me.
Yeah, and I agree with you because that's the one thing they don't do for me in this movie is Jason Statham trying to do comedy. I just got flashbacks to a movie he did with oh, what's her name? Melissa McCarthy, I think it was her name, right?
McCarty, yeah.
We have the spy movie. Whatever. I'm like, no, please, no. I don't want. I want serious Jason Statham. Like the most comedy I want from him is the one he did in Expendables. You know, his character. You know, he was still serious, a little bit of comedy. It was more competition. This was just kind of like, just like, no, no, sorry. But I
Well,
don't
let's
know.
take a minute to talk about what LK
Yeah,
brought up because I think it bags into something you said at the beginning. We'll talk about Ivory Plaza after Hugh
yeah.
Grant, but the thing that jumped out to me that I think was different than the last movie we covered, Confidence. I think there's a lot of similarities where with Confidence, the main guy was okay, it wasn't a problem, but had such a strong supporting cast to it and Confidence that we're like, wow, it really jumped out at you. And of course, in that movie, in Confidence, you had Dustin Hoffman as the guy that was going to supposedly be their mark. And you're
Yes.
like, holy crap, he's really doing a great job owning it with a seriousness to him, even though he's portraying himself a little goofy, but you can tell he's a badass. And here you got Hugh Grant, who obviously he's older now, but he's been in a lot of things, and he's been in some movies I've liked, and I haven't seen all of his movies. But he just jumps off the screen as not only is he enjoying himself, but I hate saying that this term, but the action for it is absolutely true. When you're so good and you blow everybody off the screen and you steal the scene, that's not a good thing because then the focus becomes on you rather than oh you're the mark or you're some weird character or whatever. And this ties into what you were saying before about Aubrey Plaza, where
Mhm.
she got to play herself in it. And I watched her shoplifting movie, which wasn't horrible, and she was fine in it, but it wasn't really good or redeeming, so it was very forgettable. And Aubrey Plaza, if she's not careful, is going to be in this type of role from now on, where
Yeah.
oh, she gets just to play herself. And while we like it, it was great 10 years ago, right? I mean,
So
didn't know her, so to me,
I gotta
he
say
really
though,
jumped off the screen. And I had mixed feelings about her performance.
Aubrey Plaza, though, when it comes to her acting in this, I thought it was actually like less Aubrey Plaza than we used to get. Especially if you watch, I think she was in either Community or Park Recreation. I always get those two confused.
I think it
And
was
she was,
Parks and Recreation
and she
because I
played
see
the weird girl.
Chevy
This
Chase.
was less the weird girl. This was
Yeah,
more like just the cocky kind of like and I kind of how the chemistry there was a little bit of chemistry, not too much, but there's enough there that his Jason Statham and Aubrey Plaza, if this wasn't the Guy Ritchie movie, those two would have been banging at the end, you know. But she was basically the guy, or sorry, the girl in the chair, the hacker,
mhm.
and he's basically the guy who's used to working with this other guy, John. And this was the other thing too, is like, oh, Jason Statham's like his character over this was like over the top as far as the badass. The fact that he even needed a team was kind of a joke.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was just like, okay. Now there was another character in here, and what's up to I think I saw Austin Peter asking what this movie is. It's called Operation Fortune Ruse de Guerre.
Guerre, I believe.
Or um, this came
Not
out.
Gruyere, which is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
cheese.
This came out on the third.
That's Aubrey
Um,
Plaza MK30.
yeah, yeah,
Smoking.
yeah.
Weird too.
Trying what the guy's name is in here. Oh, JJ in here, played by Bugsy Malone.
Okay.
Yeah, so I like his character in this, kind of in the sense, I love, especially towards the end, but he's basically not only he's good as a marksman sniper, but he's also basically kind of a tech guy. And like I said, I would watch a movie with those two, Jason Statham and him together in a team. Um, Audrey Plaza was just kind of for eye candy, and kind of she was a tech girl.
And that's important.
Yeah,
But here's the thing with her playing the tech role. If you close your eyes while she's talking and saying,
but
okay, you've got one coming up from the 3 o'clock position here, you're going to step in 3, 2, 1, or any of those kinds of behind the scenes things, it feels very natural and sounds that way too. But then she always has that weird sexual chemistry kind of I'm playing with you, but maybe not vibe that she pulls off so well. But at some point, that's got to get old. And just
well, when she gets old
but
enough, yeah, I
she
guess,
does do a good job of establishing chemistry with who she's got,
yeah,
like with her and Hugh Grant when he's like, um, hey, let me tell you something. And she's like, well, I'm spoken for. And he goes, No, I respect that, but listen to me. And she's like, well, and he's like, shh, I'm talking. And they're on the boat. And he says to her, it's a very big world out there. Let me be the one to show you. And I'm like, fuck yeah. She does a good job of letting him know that like she's, interested. She plays it very, very well. She's not afraid to dive into that
Yeah,
sexuality
and
content.
I did like the
So
fact that
good.
I like the fact that she kind of got creeped out a little bit,
Yes.
which makes Hugh Grant's character even more kind of a creep, because like at this point you're like, because I would hate for him to be kind of like the joke of like he's a mob boss, but yet he's a joke, and they tried to a little bit, especially towards the end, he like, yeah, I'm not the most richest man, by being idiots, I have an incentive, something goes wrong, I have an insurance plan. um Josh Hartnett, it's weird seeing Josh Hartnett in a movie. Because he was huge in the early 2000s, Black Hawk Down, 40 Days and 40 Nights, and he stopped acting for a long time, and then he recently came back, or was it 2018, 2019, in that Penny Dreadful.
Penny Dreadful, absolutely,
Yeah,
and he was
yeah,
very good in that. I liked him in that. I was like, "Oh my god, the young boy's starting to grow. Now he's a man."
yeah.
Seriously,
But there is one actor in here that just, for me, every time he's on the screen, just stole the show, and that is Kerry Hughes.
yeah, he's really good.
He's basically Charlie, the handler. He's telling him what the missions do, and him just having to deal with they should say them. There's a scene in here I just laughed I laughed out loud. Is the scene where they get the hotel room keys, and Jason Statham takes his hotel key from Kerry Hughes. And Kerry's like, "Why do you take my key?" He's like, "Well, everyone knows that you're gonna give yourself the better room." He's like, "Well, why? What if I switched it beforehand?" You know. This Kerry Hughes, I've loved Kerry Hughes in pretty much any movie he's done. Like, just when I think of comedy and Kerry Hughes, I consider, let's go back to the Mel Brooks movies. You go, Men in Tights, Robin Hood Men in Tights, or you go to The Princess Bride. So he's, just seeing him in another comedic role like this, it's like, I'm just glad that the guy's still around doing some stuff. The last I heard, he had to cut his foot off, in Saw.
Well, no, he was the evil mayor in
Yeah,
I believe season 4 of Stranger
Stranger
Things.
Things. Yeah, yeah.
And just to go back probably about 10, 15 years, I'm a huge fan of that TV show. It's a little juvenile, I admit, but it's very rewatchable to me. So sometimes I can just leave it on and I'll still catch something I laugh at. There's a TV show on USA called Psych, and he played a character that showed up in like 3 or 4 episodes, I think it was. Might have only been 2, but it was very memorable. Where he's like an art thief, and it's just kind of cool because like they can't quite catch him. It's like a cat and mouse sort of thing. And when he plays kind of that pseudo English dapper aristocrat slash little bit of a, I can't say bad guy because you like him so much because he's kind of charming,
White
but that
Collar.
role is really good. No, he makes do with what he's got, right? I mean, and when he's on screen here, you're like, oh, he totally holds his own with everybody, right? You're afraid of being
Yes.
outshone when you have all these great side actors in here too.
Yeah, like I said, like the weakest link in here would be Aubrey Plaza. It's because I've seen her song and dance before. I did like the fact that her character was integral to the plot, but it wasn't over the top and overshadowed everyone else. Uh,
LK knows about Psych.
yes.
The yin yang killer,
Yeah, yeah,
who's the chick from the 80s, from the Breakfast Club, Ali Sheedy. Oh, she's a serial killer. It's so stupid. No, but let's not detract from Operation
yes.
Fortune. Please continue.
So Operation Fortune is like it's the new Guy Ritchie movie. So I'm thinking like, okay, because it's been a while since I've seen a Guy Ritchie movie where it's basically like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, or Patch, or sorry, not Patch, Snatch. And those were 1998, 2000, and since then he kind of does, like, he's kind of gone away from that style. So to go back into this kind of style, we're kind of going back into like the Ocean's like 11 kind of like format. Remember and then those are huge. So I wonder if we're going to see another sequel from this. Maybe if it's popular enough, which I wouldn't mind.
Word on the street though, it's bombing.
Yeah, of course. I think the new generation is just they don't respect Jason Statham, because I don't think they grew up with the whole transporter like we did. We're seeing him in his early roles.
You talk about that a lot with action, but consider this.
Yeah.
you talk about, all the stuff we've covered here on Extreme Movie Show, all the different things we do. But with the other channels that you're on and the things that you do and the stuff, we always say that, I leave the comic book adaptations of movies up to you guys for the most part to judge. I certainly would give my opinion, but I'm not the biggest fan of them. I feel like a lot of younger generations, if it's not like a Marvel or DC or like Star Wars type film, whoever owns what properties these days, these types of films, which, let's be honest, this is a globetrotting kind of movie here, and it's very fun to watch because we don't get these. That this is like disorienting and confusing because they're not used to, like, well, wait a minute, is he an ass kicker? He looks like he knows martial arts, but it's not a martial arts film. Wait a minute, there's a hot chick in here, but is this a heist film? Well, kind of, sorta. It's not like James Bond, but then James Bond isn't recognizable anymore these days. So it is kind of hard to pin it down, I think.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, it's not a typical movie, but yeah, it's a lot of people who've grown up, after like the transport kind of era. The only time they see Jason Statham on screen is when he's playing like opposite Melissa McCarthy, playing like a stupid kind of like non-serious role. He's playing a comedy role, and they're like, okay. Like I said, especially you grew up in high school during the '80s. You had a lot of the serious kind of action movies, and looking at big blockbuster hits. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then how that's like I said, I born '85, '90s was like the last of the action stars, kind of thing, and it's kind of been fizzling out a little bit. We still have like Tom Cruise does like the action stuff, but we have some kind of Bond going on here with the James Bond movies, but the action movies are kind of fizzling out, as far as the ones we're used to, like they were. I'd say Jason Statham's, his film career in the early 2000s was I guess what the action movies mutated into. It's where you watch Transporter, or you watch, what was the other one he was in? The big one. He did the Transporter, and then there was another movie or
well, Transporter movies just generally got a bit more absurd as they went on, even though it's in Miami and you're like, really?
Well, yeah, the third one's weird, but like I said, it's been morphing as far as
Crank. LK's on fire tonight. That's right.
Yes.
With Chip Chipping. Oh, that's so enjoyable.
Well, not just that. I mean, we've seen him go from from going to Frank in the in the what's it? I think it was Frank Martin in the Transporter. The going to, I think his name's Hobbs.
Yep.
In the Fast and Furious now. So it's like, I don't care about Fast and Furious. Furious 7 I think is kind of dumbed down. People are like, this is action movie. It's not an action movie. It's not. It's like I don't know what you call
today's action movie.
Yeah. It's
unwatchable.
Isn't it weird how it's more from the 80s to the 90s and then 2000s?
Yeah, and the one thing about like this movie when you're watching it is that taking the action out of it, it's so beautiful. Like, okay, I've been in Europe a little bit, not a lot, but I mean I have been, right? I've done the backpacking thing and all that stuff. French Riviera is gorgeous, it's beautiful. So the one thing we talk about here on the Extreme Movie Show, like on our every other month James Bond review, where we just finished For Your Eyes Only. Next month will be the next one, Octopussy. We talk about the globetrotting things and the beauty of it, where movies are supposed to introduce you to a place that you've never been before, and so I like it when they put a little bit of the local culture in it. Here you got rich people on yachts, and you see the casinos and some really gorgeous shots and all that. So it's fun kind of doing all that. But then you go back to the 80s and you think of a movie like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, same kind of setup, but it's just a bit more clever. Here, I gotta be honest with you. I've never liked into James Bond movies or even Hitchcock or any of the supposed great directors. The ones that have this sort of, like, I call it the countdown thing that's supposed to make you really tense. This bomb's going to go off here in exactly 24 hours, and if we don't, it just doesn't do it for me. And what makes it even worse today, that I think covers up a lot of stuff, this really competent team here where they're all working and clicking together. It's like a video game where you got the one voice telling you this, you got the other one doing that. It's like I don't want to focus on the team. I want to focus on one person and everybody around him. And here, there's so many people kind of coming and going that, when 10 minutes of it are like computer screens flashing stuff and all that too. It's like, will they or won't they get that in the proverbial nick of time? I don't get a boner over it. It doesn't make me excited. I just go, they could trim this. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have that kind of crap in the 80s. It just didn't, for the most part.
Like I said, this just screamed, like, this didn't seem like a normal, I guess, current Guy Ritchie movie. This is, they call it an action comedy. It was more comedy than there was some action. The fight scenes with Jason Statham were when he's getting towards the end here were cool. I did like that. But overall, I just like I'd rather go watch the Bank Job again. You ever watch Bank Job? Came out in 2008. That was
Probably, but
yeah,
you can tell I don't really remember much about it.
Saffron Burrows, and it basically was Jason Statham and a bunch of nobodies. At least they're not. And the whole thing was about just robbing a bank,
Yeah.
and kind of scoping out. It was a much more serious tonal movie, and with more risk and stuff. This was just too much comedy for me for a Jason Statham movie. And like I said, I'm so used to seeing Jason Statham, and while I used to when I went to theaters all the time, I watched them. Like I said, was the serious movies. And yeah,
Austin P saying I wasn't heard people get boners at third night countdowns. Austin, whatever it is that gets you off when you're watching a movie, I simply got to sit there and say, like, one of my guilty pleasures, Bond movies wise, is I'm not the biggest Pierce Brosnan fan. I always say he looks pretty in the suit, but God damn it, his suit game is on, and the world is not enough. So, I look at that and I go, okay, that's worth half a chub, maybe. I'm straight and I'm hetero, but I'm not going to lie. Some things get you excited. One of the things that always popped me, say, when we started the Extreme Movie Show years ago, when RDV was just starting to come on, we did some of the early Chuck Norris films, right? And we talked about, well, let's talk about the first one. Now let's talk about the second. Let's talk about this, whether it's Breaker, which is not a good film. You're watching it develop, and you started to realize that Chuck Norris was working his way through films, and he was interested in telling a certain story that climaxed with one fight at the end. And as much as Chuck Norris isn't physically the biggest guy in the world, I mean, he's certainly not small like Tom Cruise or anything. He's legit. He delivered it, and so you got excited because you knew what you were getting. So by the time we started talking about like the Octagon or his magnum opus, Lone Wolf McQuade, you know what you're going to get, so you're excited just waiting for those scenes to unfold.
yeah,
With a Guy Ritchie film, it's not so much specific scenes I think he has in them. It's the fact that he tries to be cute about his British humor, and when you try to be cute instead of just letting cute happen, it feels a little kind of like forced. So when it says action comedy, be one or the other, maybe with some dry lines like Roger Moore kind of comedy humor, that dry British humor, not hip. Because right now, 20 years ago, if this came out, like when Ocean's 11 came out, I think this would have been a lot bigger film. It had been more hip at the time. Now it just seems a little out of place, but I still think this is a hell of a lot better than, say, something like The Glass Onion, which I thought was just not good, but it looked good. It was, a big film and very colorful and all that. But throwing all these ingredients together doesn't automatically mean you're going to have a good meal. At least that's the way I describe it, because it is fun
yeah.
and it is a pleasure to watch. It doesn't piss you off, I don't think.
The biggest letdown for me in this movie, and I'm just nitpicking here. Like I said, it's still a good movie. I recommend anybody who wants to watch it a movie on now. I'd rather watch a Guy Ritchie movie than watch most of the Marvel or DC movies coming out today, superhero stuff. The biggest letdown for me in this was Emilia. She's the security right hand woman for Hugh Grant in this, and I'm thinking like, man, is she gonna get in a fight scene with Aubrey Plaza? No, her and Albert Plaza not getting a fight scene at all. It was like, come on, really? I was like, if that would have been like, if this would have been in the '90s, it would have been like, you would have had Lucy Liu or Michelle Yeoh, and she just would have kicked ass,
Yes.
I was like, you missed opportunity for that right there. They had the two girls fight.
I'm gonna make a comment on what LK's saying in chat about movies with the way you're describing them, and that's that with MCU movies, there used to be a way back in the day when you'd film stuff with live or whatever, or edit it, where you have your laugh tracks to condition people to laugh at certain jokes, but you do it with live audiences. Well, the thing too is it's one thing if it's like a sporting event, there's energy and all that stuff, saying, hey, we're going live in 3, 2, 1, or all that, you get it. But the other thing is like when you look at like television, scripted television generally, especially comedy shows, most of it I found unbearable to watch because every third or fourth line, there's a laugh, and it's just something stupid. So something that was really popular, like say Three's Company or tons of other comedies, it's like speech writing today. If you're a politician, you write something with the idea that when you pause, you're supposed to get applause or whatever it's going to be, no matter what party you listen to or affiliated. That's how speechwriters work. The problem is, unless you have a hand-picked audience for it, it's not going to work. So, like I said, Guy Ritchie's done several movies. We've covered a couple of them here on Extreme Movie Show. You kind of know you're getting a little bit of that British humor attack, and I do appreciate the fact that he likes to do the world traveling bit here. That's always a plus for me. That's worth half a chubby. I think if we're doing a chubby counter tonight, a little meter, so to speak, it's cool. And so when you get to wear suits and be in places that the average person doesn't go, and you get open up to this elitist world, that's cool. And let's be honest, as something as low budget as like Chuck Norris in the Octagon fighting, and all that stuff. That was kind of cool because you're going down deep into that secret underground world that nobody knows anything about, and it's cool and it's neat. Here we just got a bit of the we're all kind of having fun making a lighthearted movie sort of vibe, and I think the people acting in it enjoyed it, which helps. I don't think there's any paycheck cashing in here, and I got to circle back to Hugh Grant here for my final thoughts. I never, ever, ever watched the Oscars. I could give two flying shits about them. I think it's a big circle jerk, and if that's what you're interested in, you like watching it, more power to you. I guess that one movie, Everywhere All at Once, or whatever the hell it's called, won. Don't know anything about it, so maybe it deserved it, maybe it didn't. But I go, shit. When Top Gun was starting to win an award or two early, I went, they're fucked. They're not going to win Best Picture, because I go, whether I'd rewatch the movie or not, on a technical level and what it did and delivered, I find it very hard to believe that Mission Impossible didn't win last year, and we know that it's all politics, right? But when I look at Hugh Grant right now, I immediately thought of Top Gun, because I thought, just like what LK or whoever said earlier in chat, that if he's not on the short list of supporting actors or whatever you want to call it in a film, it's going to be criminal, because I've always thought he was okay. I didn't never hated him, but I never saw anything about him. And I did see one or two movies with him about 20 years ago that I thought were, hey, this is pretty good. I can almost see what people like about him. And in here, he just delivered. And again, it's a strong cast. It's got a big feel to it. So some films don't seem big. This one definitely does. And I got to be honest, I'm wondering why it's not doing well at the theaters.
I said I think most people one thing is for theaters. I our economy is shit as it is right now. That's for a lot of things, But there's also people who do not want to go to theaters. They'd rather sit home and wait for it to hit HBO Max, or if we do whatever.
Yeah.
This because everything's going inflation, man. Like you're paying. I went to go see Cocaine Bear like a couple weeks ago, and that was like over $10 for a day showing.
Yeah.
And you figure that on top of the popcorn and stuff, it's just sometimes it's just cheaper just to wait for it to hit, in home theater. And that's the other thing too. We now since the 80s and 90s, we now have the capability to afford an actual like good surround system if you want to. We have the giant TVs now, or if you want to get the projection if you want to. There's really no reason to go to a theater. But the other thing is that I think more people are conditioned to watch like movies like Fast and Furious. They're yeah, and I see conditioned
Short
like
attention span
brainwash.
films.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Quick cuts.
Like
Yeah.
if there's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie out, people will go see it because it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even though the last couple ones haven't been that great. Same with Jason, or just people like certain things and just people want to go. Now this, like I said, I this is a good movie, but like I said, like it's not one of Jason Statham's best. Even though him working with Guy Ritchie is always a good thing. Usually, this is like the fifth time they've worked together. But I don't know. It's I think it might be the trailer too, And like I said, it's. I think a lot of people don't like Audrey Plaza.
You
I don't
think?
know why. I think that might be part of it too. Like you
Well,
look at
she's the girl that you like at first. It's kind of cool, and then like a month or two into the school year,
you
you're
know,
like, "Oh, this chick, Jesus, she's going to get on my nerves," and she
well,
does,
like
because
that's
they don't let her grow. I think
yeah,
she's got the ability to do it, but what is she going to be? Be what you are, do it well, and just give us some variations on it. And that's again, going back to James Bond, we talk about how it falls into a particular pattern, how the movie generally is how it is, and certain things pop. So like on my Twitter feed now, I'm starting to see the occasional cucumber sandwich meme pop up or like that, and I've been all over that for
yeah,
years, right? But that's the thing. And so it's like with Aubrey Plaza, hey, I know you're trying to do other roles and be taken seriously as an actor, whatever that means. All it means is you got some guilt because you made a shit ton of money doing stuff that was kind of easy and way up your wheelhouse. Nothing wrong with that,
yeah,
but don't act like there's some bigger thing to her or like that. Just and
yeah.
so again, I liked her in this,
Mhm.
but then I kind of always kind of liked her, and I pointed her out a very long time ago that she does that weirdo crazy thing very well. Not a lot of women do.
Why isn't she in like remakes of like The Craft or something like that? Or supernatural stuff, because she has the sarcastic kind of like creepy tone to her voice. So
I don't know if she'll ever do
why,
TV, but
like she could easily play a serial killer in a movie. You know, she's just that creepy. But yeah, she does the comedy stuff, and it's just like, and then plus, I mean, a lot of people are waking up and now seeing like as far as like when these celebrities open their mouth and say stupid shit, people will not, they're like, wow, I should go watch a movie and support this person. Like a lot of times you see, especially the MCU movies. So that's the thing that's weird too. It's like you see a lot of these actors like they'll start saying stuff, criticize oh, this isn't for straight white males. Elizabeth Bank is an idiot. She does this shit too. We've seen it before with Margaret Robbie. So it's like a lot of guys are just kind of like, okay, you want me to watch an action movie, but then you have this chick in here. Like, oh, I really don't want to watch it because she's in here. Like, and it ruins the movie. It sucks. So anyway, I think LK was saying too is like the marketing.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of idiotic
and
marketing or lack thereof.
Any marketing that was for this, are you billing it as an action movie or comedy?
Right.
And I'm just sick of the comedies. I just want action, straight action. That's all I need.
Yeah.
I guess, and so I mean, but as far as the rest of the cast, so the cast was weak as far as the guy who played Mike, Peter for Ferdinando, playing the competitor, because like, oh, the MI6 or whatever you want to call basically. We're sending two people to retrieve this, this football device or whatever, this thing, the handle is called, and they're competing. That would not happen in real life, and it just seems the logistic, for logic, behind it is just kind of stupid competing, and then of course he turns out to be the bad guy, only to be not the bad guy. He's just an idiot, and just gets beat up. It's just like, weak sauce, bro.
Yeah, it's.
So,
I mean.
So
you don't have to be surprised at the end, I mean, you can, but
yeah, but overall, the chase scenes were kind of cool in here too. Jason Statham, whenever he got a chance, and he infiltrates the house, like the Russian mobster's house.
Yeah,
and then they're playing Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid on the TV. Rain just keep falling on. He's
but see,
I was like, that's the best scene in the movie.
They're popping themselves by doing that. You know what I'm saying? That's the problem. And that's when you write stuff that you think is funny, that doesn't make it funny.
So what they should have done, seeing that, because we all know what happens in Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. Jason Statham gets popped at the end.
And the point is if you did not know that about Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, or the song, or you knew nothing about it all, and he kind of did that as an in joke, kind of Easter egg, towards that might pop your interest for it. Now it show a little, paying homage to the movie rather than just popping yourself with a cheapie. And that's the whole point. That's what a lot of these things, are these days. And I get when people have certain lines, you're supposed to cheer. It's like classical conditioning. And like even Austin's mentioned about the movie theater experience. I suppose if you're used to seeing any Avenger movie or any of this movie or whatever you're a fan of, or even if it's all of them, that when you go, you have like-minded people seeing the same thing. There is that energy that can develop. But boy, I'm telling you, nothing got an audience worked up more than an action film. Not comedy, not a drama, not a romance, with people crying in the theaters, because what guy's going to go see that crap? But like I'm telling you, like you and I covered Perfect Weapon with Jeff Speakman, right? Totally underrated movie. I'm telling you, the crowd was super hot for that. And by the time you've seen 2 or 3 JCVD movies, you knew what you're going to get. So by the time like Death Warrant came out, which sucked, you're still a fan of it. Or the one where he's got the identical twins or whatever. I mean, you know what you're getting, and the audience thing does help. It doesn't make the movie better, but it makes the experience more fun. And it's hard for me to enjoy a film when I can't focus on it because there's a bunch of quick cuts and it's really obvious CGI and all that. And, kind of circling back here to Tom Cruise a little bit, practical effects and everything. Again, we talk about with martial arts films. I'm more of a fan of the more serious style rather than the Jackie Chan, but we do appreciate what he does to it, his own stunts. So that's the kind of stuff we like to point out here. This is the kind of movie that does kind of have fun with itself, doesn't take itself too seriously, and that's okay. But it's like I almost wish it was a thriller or an action movie, almost like that. Like I felt they could have pulled that off.
If this is a serious movie, wouldn't you get a chub? If Milia was kind of like Odd Job and just like just the chill people, like that's what I wanted, like that, and like and then the plot twist is that Carrie Hughes is the bad guy. That would have been a much better twist for me, but and yeah, Hugh Grant's the fall guy, and like you said, you can drop some of the comedy, make more of it an action. I want a Roger Moore kind of like style, movie. If you're doing this, you're doing a British movie. Give me some Roger Moore style, like James Bond.
Also talking about not really having experience with non-prepaid seating.
Yeah.
Man, I tell you, if you had your girlfriend, you go in the back row to make out or whatever. Most people would sit in the middle, but some people like to be up front and all that. But
So
man, no cell phones at all. You would not hear. I mean, people would eat popcorn and drink sodas, but it's just louder today, and that's because again, trying to get all the food in the theaters and all that. When we would talk about like snacking it and goofing off early on in the Extreme Show, we
yeah,
would talk about some of these things with the experience, because when you have that experience, that's what you're going out for. So when I take my lady out or something, sometimes we're in the mood to say, we just want to go out and have a drink. We want to have a nice dinner. We want to maybe catch a movie, and we don't see many movies because, one, there's not that many good ones. But we want to just leave having fun or being entertained, and it's really hard to find one that pleases both audiences,
yeah,
male and female. So it is a tough pull, but this is the type of movie where, like I say, I think it could appeal to both. I think it could appeal to young or old. That's not easy to do. So I think it's probably better if you make it a little bit lighthearted. But boy, I think the takeaway here from my final thoughts is this: it's watchable, it's enjoyable, it's kind of fun. You definitely could do worse, especially by today's standards. But it left me wanting more, and it did leave me dying to go, man, I think I might go put on Commando or Psych or something, because I want some action. I want something that's in my face.
yeah. The only thing missing here was Vinnie Jones popping up as a random bad guy competing against him. He's the other guy. He would have been better as Mike. Vinnie Jones. That would have been awesome. But like I said, go check this movie out. I personally would say save your money though. I would say go check it out. When it comes to streaming, watch it there.
This is a reminder too for everybody. I just want to say a couple things. I do appreciate, letting everybody know that we exist. We're getting close to 1,000 subs, which kind of starting off as a rib. We didn't even know that would be. But when you've got a movie like Commando and you've got a bad guy wearing this iron chainmail vest, which is really yarn, and Bennett, and he can deliver such lines that make you pee your pants or whatever, like, put the knife away and shut your mouth. John, he offered me 100 grand to kill you, but when I found it was you, I said I'd do it for free. I mean, you were howling in hysterics, and it still never gets old.
So I'll say this: this is better than Red Notice. That was on Netflix, so it has that going.
There's definitely better villains. I'm not saying not well acted, but like Bennett's a lot more memorable. And while Hugh Grant's probably a better villain in this, I'll remember because he acted and he seemed like he was out for Bennett. Come on, we're still quoting him to that too.
Also, a shout out to Hugh Grant. He's gotten some hot water, like freaking, I guess, on the internet because some stupid woman was giving him stupid interview lines and just talking about the movie. And it was just basically he just was so annoyed by her. He just basically he played classic Hugh Grant. And he just when she asked him, "What are you wearing?" And he's like, "Well, I'm wearing a jacket, a suit. I don't know who made it. I'm just wearing it." And she's like, "Oh, what was it like working Operation Fortune?" He's like, "I was in there for 3 seconds." He's just he's like, people are so upset at him, and I'm just gonna say it. Bravo, Mr. Grant, because you ask stupid questions, you should get stupid answers back.
When you have simple lines, it's all about delivery and the quote.
Well, he's a misogynist. He treated because there was a woman interviewer. He disrespected her. Oh, blah blah blah.
To quote Bennett from Commando, "John, I'm not going to shoot you between the eyes. I'm going to shoot you between the balls."
Dude, the funniest thing
that intensity is what is missing in these movies lately.
Rob, but can you not? The interview thing with Hugh Grant, the only thing that was missing, people were saying about this movie, or him in this interview and in general at the Oscars, they're just like, does the woman even know who he is? Is she watching these movies? Like, it's like it's a 20-year-old interviewing Sean Connery, and Sean Connery, is not as famous as he was back then. Unless you're older, a lot of these new people don't know who these celebrities. Hugh Grant has kind of dropped off the face of the earth.
He has,
yeah.
But I still think he's got some years in front of him.
Sure.
And with Mother's Day coming up, we're going to be talking about Mother's Day movies.
9.5 weeks.
Maybe some new ones too. Obviously, that's one of our more popular videos. And then we also like to do Father's Day, where we review Commando. every year. So we'll be doing that
What
again.
was it? Glass Onion. Yeah. Well, he was kind of like, in here for a little bit, not too much, you know.
Yeah. All right, any other final thoughts?
Final thoughts, go check out this movie, and then afterward check out our review for Cocaine Bear if you haven't watched that. And
Yeah, we've had some alternate requests, some trauma films, and a couple others too. So we're sorting through. So if you guys have any specific ones you want to see get the extreme treatment or whatever like that, let us know.
plus size. Sorry, plus size Angie. Yeah, I don't think anybody can get around her. That's why they have her back. Sorry, we're done. This has been a Twin Peaks production.
It's not no, a Quinn Martin production, or as Pixel would say, a Dan Curtis production. Oh yeah, Wayward Pines. We just did season 1. That's why I'm Rob Pines in here today. That's we just did episode 1. That's a very interesting show, especially if you don't know anything about it. It's a cross between, say, The Prisoner, Twin Peaks, both shows we've covered here on the Extreme Movie Show as well. Professor Pixel and I primarily. We sometimes the three of us get together and do stuff like we did season 1 to Haven and a few others. So going to be interesting to see what we end up covering later in the year too. But man, I want some good shit. And this movie just got me teased a little bit. It got me half a chub. I want the full wood now. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Love the engagement down there. Have a good night. As always, remember, stay extreme.